Hello Internet, Taliesin here, and today we are back in the UK, we are back in the office, we're back from Blizzcon, and we are going to be talking Saurfang. We're going to be talking Anduin and his beautiful angel boy crying face, we are going to be talking the future of the Horde and the entire faction system in World of Warcraft going forward, because today, Internet, we are talking Lost Honor, one of the two new cinematics shown to us at BlizzCon. And yes, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but Taliesin, BlizzCon was an entire week ago now. I don't give a shit about any of that stuff anymore. You completely missed the hype train on this one, boy. You need to make a video choking on your own vom about Diablo Immortal or falling stock prices or something. And also, we haven't had a proper episode of the Weekly Reset in almost 3 weeks. You're a terrible YouTuber and you're a terrible person. And yes, that's a very good point. And you're absolutely right on pretty much all of those counts. And I'd like to apologize for how late this analysis video is. But you see, the thing is, I've been sleeping because jet lag is real, and yes, we are a bit behind, and yes, I know hardly anyone will watch this video as a result, but you know what? Having a proper deep dive into WoW cinematics and properly going through all of those great little details and references in them is one of my favourite things to do on this channel, and these two new additions to the canon are, as usual, packed with some really interesting moments and talking points. So gosh darn it, while Evertale is starting work on the Weekly Reset in the next room, I'm going to go ahead and make this video anyway. And this video was originally going to cover both of the new cinematics, Lost Honor and Terror of Darkshore, but I realised writing this script that I had so much to say about Lost Honor just by itself that they're going to have to be separate shows. So our Terror of Darkshore video analysis will be coming first thing next week. I promise. I almost promise. And as usual, this is not a reaction video. I've now seen this film many times already, and if you haven't, then this video will be a terrible way to watch it, because we're going to be stopping and starting and talking all over it and generally just dissecting it in a really geeky way. So join us as we take a look at Lost Honor and ask, who will win the battle for the heart of the Horde? Okay? Go, 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 go. And we begin today with Lost Honor because it was the first one shown at BlizzCon, and because it's also the first in the timeline of events out of the two cinematics. And I think this is a neat way that Blizzard have been using these films recently in of itself, because we're used to cinematics in-game punctuating action. They come at the end of a raid or at the end of a zone storyline. They wrap things up and give us a big finish. But in BFA, we're seeing them used just as much to set the scene for things that are about to happen. And I really appreciate that, because when they aren't used as like a climax of a scene, they don't have to be such a dramatic spectacle. They can take their time a bit more, focus on character occasionally, and that's exactly what a lot of the cutscenes and cinematics in this expansion do. And Lost Honor really does follow on from Old Soldier in taking this more subtle look at the motivations behind Saurfang. And we open with this exquisite shot of Stormwind Harbour. And we'll get to the dramatic purpose of this shot from a cinematic perspective in just a moment. But first of all, I want to look at it through my Warcraft player goggles, because I absolutely love it when we get to see really famous locations from the game world recreated in these almost photorealistic renders. It was awesome when they did it for Lordaeron in the BFA trailer and Old Soldier, and it's awesome here. And obviously the first thing I thought when I saw this was, where in Stormwind is this shot actually taken from? Because pleasingly, this exact vantage point exists in-game, and you can go and stand there for this exact view, almost. You can see there's a couple of extra docks added, and these kind of garden bits right here to give it more scale. And of course, it's much more full of soldiers than we're used to seeing too, because this is a capital city in the middle of a war. A war that is stretching it to the very limits of its resources, and a war which the Alliance isn't exactly winning at this point either. Now, my absolute favourite thing about this shot is the white cliffs that are rendered over here. This totally speaks to my childhood growing up on the coast. And my second favourite thing is this landmass slap bang in the middle of the sea here, because it just doesn't exist in game, unless it's like a very artistic license glimpse of Westfall, you know. But now, taking off my WoW player goggles, it obviously doesn't matter, and who gives a shit, because it looks great. And as the camera pulls back, it puts us on the shoulder of our young boy king, Anduin Rin. And obviously the fact that our opening view of the scene has now been established as being from his point of view puts us in his shoes and makes us relate to him as essentially being our eyes and ears in the story that's about to unfold. And a quick note about the use of music here. Because in both of these cinematics, there's a really clever use of musical cues and motifs, and that's exactly what's going on here. The piano picking out just 4 notes, but those notes are instantly recognisable as Anduin's theme from Legion, a theme that we're used to being very bombastic and triumphant. Here is slowed and quietened down to a much more introspective and thoughtful feeling thing. And as usual when we see Anduin, the first character that speaks to him...
That's the last of the soldiers. We'll be calling up farmers next.
Is Gebb Greymane. In every cinematic, whenever you see the young king, Genn is always either the next character we see or the next character who speaks, and this helps establish him as Anduin's closest, most trusted aide and friend and very good boy and father figure, whatever you want to think of him as. As you may well know, we predicted that there would be a cinematic like this shown at BlizzCon, and we predicted that it would be based around Gebb Greymane. So when we saw this for the first time live and he pops up here on Anduin's shoulder, we were thinking, ah yeah boys, totally called it, here comes our Greymane cinematic, because everything we say comes true. But no, in this case we were totally wrong, because this is all we see of him at all, and he's out of focus. Now, partly that's to keep focus on Anduin's beautiful angel face, because he's the one that's really going to be doing the important stuff in this story, and that's okay with me, because seriously, this is the best rendition I think we've had of any character in-game so far. Textures are so detailed, it's unreal. He's actually got like little spots around his mouth and little wisps of bum fluff on his chin that he's totally failing to cultivate into anything like a full beard. I believe this kid is an actual teenager. If an angel had come down from heaven and become a teenager and then cried about it in a way that made him weirdly even more attractive, but it's great. I suspect the other reason that Genn isn't in focus here though is because he's really expensive to animate in a super rendered film like this, because he's such a good boy with so much hair. In fact, I've been told that originally he wasn't even supposed to be in the BFA trailer because of that. It was supposed to be the Draenei character that we see there who spoke to Anduin and did the whole "we have her surrounded" stuff, and it was only much later in the process that Genn was added, when it became clear that it really should be him doing that, and bollocks to the cost, and thank goodness for that. And here he is delivering news to Anduin, but in a slightly informal way, as befits his status as a friend to the king as well as a general.
That's the last of the soldiers.
I love the beautiful, lamentful he has in the middle of his sentence as he's saying that at this point, Stormwind has literally run out of soldiers. The war has taken such a toll, which is really important.
We'll be calling up farmers next.
It shows how desperate the war has become for the Alliance at this point. It helps explain why Stormwind doesn't send soldiers to Darkshore to help Tyrande and the Night Elves, as we'll see in the next cinematic, and it could even be foreshadowing the fact that the city itself is now not defended properly. Should that be important for any other future plot lines? I don't know why that would be important. Obviously, I can't think of anyone who might want to attack Stormwind or anything, so actually, I don't even know why I brought it up. Just ignore that. And this is followed by a really great line from Anduin.
When this war began, I thought we were fighting for peace. But we're just fighting.
Okay, now that's just really good writing, and I like it. And I love how the camera's focus as he says this is the docks, as we realise that it's not just soldiers lining up down there, but rows and rows of war dead too. Some in proper coffins, others hastily covered. There's just so many of them, and Anduin must feel a responsibility for all of them. He knows that these soldiers getting ready to depart here, this is how many of them will come back, unless something changes soon. And Genn says,
"You're doing all you can to stop her, Your Majesty."
But is he? The music swells slightly here, and we see a new look of resolve on Anduin's face. And this is what an angel looks like when it makes a decision, because he's decided, actually no, there is something more that he can do. And before we move on from this scene, I want to bring your attention to just how open and bright it is. There's a couple of reasons for this. The bright sunlight helps illuminate the horror of what's happening for Anduin and for us. He is quite literally seeing the results of this war in the harsh light of day. There's no hiding from it. But also, this is very much Anduin's world. This is a location that we can very much associate Anduin with, where he belongs, up on high, looking out over Stormwind, a very familiar view. And it's a view stretching out literally for as far as the eye can see, which contrasts very nicely with underground in the Stormwind stockades. So straight away, there's a sense that Anduin is slightly out of place here. He's very purposely moving out of his comfort zone, out of where he really belongs. And we can see that straight away because suddenly we're in a very confined space. It's very dark. The light that is visible is very limited and cold. It basically couldn't be any more different from Anduin's Stormwind that we just saw. And that's true in a much more subtle way as he approaches the bar of the cell. His pristine, shiny, beautiful armor contrasts starkly with the dull, rusted metal of the door. Everything about the design of this scene is to make us see how out of place Anduin is here and to add to that sense of danger that he's putting himself into. And next comes my favourite shot of the entire cinematic. As he looks around the cell, and at first we might think it's empty until the slight movement reveals the beast in the corner. And this is such a beautifully executed moment because it does so much. It helps Saurfang feel to us like a literal wild animal. It's like when you go to a zoo and you know there's a tiger or a rhino in this pen, but it's kind of like tucked away in the corner, almost hidden from view, but you can just sense it breathing and existing, and it feels really alien and unknowable. It's possible that I'm the only one that feels that way when I go to zoos, to be honest, and it's why I don't really go to the zoo anymore, because I find it a bit depressing. And there's something depressing about this too, because that's the important thing about Saurfang here. He is not a confident or hopeful prisoner. This is not like Silence of the Lambs, where we find Hannibal Lecter standing upright in the middle of the cell, smirking and waiting for us. No, this once proud orc is hunched in the corner, in the shadows, shifting uncomfortably in his chair, staring down at the floor. We see that his food remains completely uneaten, and his bed completely untouched. Although I have to say that I don't really blame him for that, because seriously, how cruel are the Alliance jailers? This bed is placed directly underneath the skylight here, which is totally open to the elements. All that atmospheric dripping of water into the cell that we see here and throughout the scene, yeah, that's falling through this hole in the ceiling directly into Saurfang's bed. I don't blame him for sleeping in the chair, is what I'm saying. And as Anduin begins to speak to him,
At Lordaeron, you had the chance to take my life.
his eyes remain fixed on the floor. He doesn't want to engage with this kid at all, even if he can't help flinching slightly when Anduin reminds him that he could have killed him at Lordaeron. And when he says this, I was wondering what part of the Battle of Lordaeron Anduin is actually talking about here, because it might be the bit where Saurfang knocks him down and his little helmet comes off, but he doesn't so much spare him there as much as Greymane leaps to the rescue. And the only other bit I can think of is the part of the Alliance scenario where we capture him, but he doesn't really spare Anduin there either. I, the player character, and 19 of my closest complete strangers totally kick his ass and take him to custody. But okay, let's say for the sake of story, this is what happened and that Saurfang totally could have killed Anduin, but didn't. Either way, Anduin's next move of walking into the cell, totally alone, and very purposely locking himself in with the orc is a massive deal. Because it shows what Anduin is all about. He's all about hope, and he's all about trust. In the BFA trailer, he throws down his father's sword. He leaves himself unarmed in the middle of battle and trusts in the light. Here, he confronts the enemy unarmed and trusts that his instincts about the enemy are correct. And it's made very clear to us what a risky strategy this is.
Why didn't you kill me?
Could kill you now.
So yeah, Saurfang straight up acknowledges that he could kill Anduin now in the most perfectly delivered line I think I've ever heard in a WoW cinematic. I mean, these voice actors are knocking it out of the park here, and it's glorious, and the facial expressions are incredible, and the danger is underlined when Saurfang raises to his full considerable height and size, and this shot here really emphasizes just how much he towers over Anduin physically. And I love how Anduin just takes a moment to realise this himself before snapping out of it and forcing himself to carry on acting all cool. But it's notable how he moves away from Saurfang and keeps very tight to the wall. He absolutely does not feel safe in this situation. And here we reach what is probably the defining moment of the film. Anduin says,
I spared you because I believed you have honor.
And I'm going to let this play, but see the effect that the word honor has on Saurfang and how it saddens and angers him because he knows that what Anduin is saying is right.
Was I wrong? Do you want more innocents to suffer? The Horde...
I have given everything for the Horde!
But then we remember, oh shit, this cinematic is called Without Honor. Is Saurfang about to prove that Anduin is completely wrong and just rip him apart right now? I thought that it's helped along somewhat by Saurfang's outburst here, and the journey that this character goes through in just a few steps across the room is incredibly complex, and I think personally an example of absolute masterful storytelling and craft, because this is like a huge release. Up to this point, we've seen Saurfang in 4 rendered cinematics so far. The BFA trailer, the Legion Horde epilogue, Old Soldier, and now here. And this is the first time that he's ever said the name Sylvanas out loud.
Blood for it. Kill for it. And Sylvanas is destroying it. She will destroy everything. What I want is my Horde back.
And that's very significant because although he's clearly been very distressed about the way the Horde has been conducting itself before, he's always blamed himself for letting it happen. You think you know me? He asked Sappy Boy in Old Soldier. What I've seen, what I've done. But here, finally, in saying Sylvanas' name, he admits to Anduin and himself that she is the problem. She's the one that, in his opinion, must be stopped. It's not Saurfang who's without honor, it is the Horde under Sylvanas. Which you have to imagine is exactly what Anduin was counting on, but you can still forgive him for being just a little bit scared when Saurfang squares up to him and demolishes the stone wall behind him with his fist. But again, you see, our little priest trusts that Saurfang's sense of honor means that he is safe in this situation. And having named Sylvanas for the first time, we now reach Saurfang's moment of truth, because when Anduin asks once again why he was spared,
Saurfang, tell me why you spared my life.
Saurfang does something actually very brave, as his musical motif starts playing, just like it did in his moment of realization with Zakan in Old Soldier, where a young, idyllic, good-souled troll put himself in harm's way and reminded him what the true heart of the Horde was. Here, a young, idyllic, good-souled human king puts himself in harm's way to draw out this admission from Saurfang.
I hoped you would stop her.
Because this is massive. This is Saurfang admitting to premeditated treason of sparing an enemy in combat in the hope that that enemy will go on to defeat the war chief. At this moment, Saurfang is now an enemy to both the Alliance and the Horde, and basically all that's left for him is to rot in this cell with its wet, drippy bed and hope that his plan works. And what Anduin does next is just as brave in its own way.
I can't. Not alone.
Because just like Zakan saved him from himself by imploring him to live another day, Anduin gives him his actual freedom, leaving the door of the cell open. And unlike Sylvanas, who never gave the Horde leaders a choice in the atrocities they committed, now, for the first time, Saurfang's fate is entirely in his own hands, and he has the freedom to fight his own cause. Now, this can be seen as a desperate move from Anduin. The war is going badly wrong, and his only hope is to unleash this bitter old monster back into the world, and to hope that he does what Anduin wants him to. But I think this shows a much more noble side of the Boy King, because it proves the faith that Anduin has, not just in Saurfang, but in the Horde. The true Horde. The Horde that he respects. The Horde his father and Jaina taught him about. A Horde that for the moment may well be without honor, but for the first time since the Legion invaded, might just have a chance of rediscovering the right path. Now, the obvious question all this raises is, what does this mean for the Horde going forward? Because now we have two very opposing forces acting on it. You could almost say two different factions within the Horde. And with the choice that players get given in 8.1, where we have a chance to decide whether to help Saurfang or stay loyal to Sylvanas, that feeling is made even more explicit. Because on one side, you have the new Horde, Sylvanas, the war chief, Nathanos, the Forsaken, the Dark Rangers, and Gallywix, I guess, although even he is starting to have doubts in 8.1. On the other side, the more traditional Horde of Bane, Saurfang, and Zakan. Is all of this setting up some kind of split? Could we be looking at a that breakaway Horde, giving us that third faction that so many have talked about in the past? Or could it be the complete opposite? Could this all be leading to the end of Sylvanas as she gets overthrown or runs away to become the next Lich King even, and essentially the end of all of the factions, Horde and Alliance existing in name only, but players having the freedom to play whatever race they like, regardless of previous loyalties? And you know, I don't know. Some days I wake up and I think we're heading for 3 factions. Some days I wake up and I think we're heading for 1 faction. But one thing is certain, something is going to happen. And in these events playing out right now in game, the fate of Sylvanas, Saurfang, the Alliance, and the very soul of the Horde is at stake. But what do you think, guys? What is next for Saurfang? Has Anduin just made a massive mistake in letting him go? Is all of this just irrelevant anyway because Sylvanas is just going to stomp all over everyone and everyone we've talked about here will be dead by next expansion? Let us know in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today. Sorry again this video has taken a while to happen, but I'm really glad I got round to it because it always surprises me just how much there is to talk about in these cinematics, which I guess is a testament to the incredible talent and work that goes into making them. And I'm really looking forward to talking about Terror of Darkshore after the next weekly reset too, because I've got a feeling there will be just as much to enjoy there. If you enjoyed this video, don't thank us, thank our patrons who give their actual real life money to make these videos happen. Guys, without you, there would be a lot less Taliesin and Evertel, so thank you. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. And remember, my name is Bay from Final Boss TV. No, my name is Taliesin from me and Evertel. Until next time, cheerio.